The Death of Disco. I'm Rebecca Lieb.
I'm Jason Horton.
And this is Ghost Town.
This disco thing isn't happening.
Our teens were at White Sox Park for a radio station promotion called Anti-Disco. Between games at tonight's doubleheader, a local disc jockey blew up disco records in center field, and the crowd responded by rushing the field. Police moved in, and it took them a considerable amount of time. A bonfire had been built in the middle of center field. Police tried to clear the unruly crowd, pushed them out, finally got them off the field, although, again, it took a long time. Perhaps some arrests, it's hard to tell. Some people appear to be taken into custody.
How do you feel about disco?
I love it.
You do?
Yeah, I love disco.
You love disco?
It's one of those things that, like, those genre music that I really enjoy. It's like pop music. It's great, but it also, like, makes me go a little crazy, too. It's like the twinkling and the repetitiousness, and I'm like, this coke-dusted memory of what was once, like, sexy, like oversexed and glamorous, Studio 54. What are we doing here? You know?
That's a perfect answer. Because what we're going to talk about is Disco Demolition Night.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That sounds like it just kind of is still going and it's still healthy and...
Nope.
Oh.
No, it was not any of those things. It was a promotion for baseball and a radio station.
Whoa.
Together.
Whoa.
In 1979.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Not really.
More
yeah,
like cottage cheese and Schlitz.
I'd say like peanut butter and AA batteries.
Oh.
Which is a classic.
You didn't like cottage cheese and Schlitz?
Yeah. I guess that's good too. In 1979 at Kaminsky Park in Chicago. So we're going back
to my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Now I want to kind of talk a little bit about disco in general first, like a tiny bit about disco to kind of frame at least my thoughts on the music, which although I was alive during disco, I wasn't, really
you were
aware.
A father of three.
Two. Wasn't that I was a child.
Yep.
But I was very aware of it, but I wasn't like really contributing to it. And I wasn't really experiencing the same way other people were. But my kind of take into just being a fan of music and how sometimes a genre of music is an answer to what's going on in the world.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's kind of always like that, too.
Yeah.
It's always like that and an answer to what went on before musically, like a reactionary thing.
It's just very, very much like that. The way, like 60s folk rock, counterculture is an answer to politics and war. I believe that disco was sort of a response to, one, people just want to have a good time. Music in the 70s was very dominated by rock music, but also a lot of AM radio.
Yeah, and political, and it was very... Yeah, and then, also, like, disco, it's like we were getting into the late 70s, early 80s, too.
Yeah.
And it was becoming more of a money culture, not so much like Hall & Oates style.
Sure, but the kind of, the economy was still really depressed.
Yeah.
There was, punk rock, and then, the kind of... art music movement of, say New York City.
Yeah.
And then New Wave would happen as almost a response to, disco almost went into, they took that and made it into New Wave. Well, in 1979, there was a real divide between people that like rock and roll and, music with quote unquote substance, which is sometimes debatable. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. There's a lot
also to say it's so reductive because disco was like the pop music of that time. Which I think it's easy for us to be like, oh, pop music doesn't have a substance, when it's just a different style and form of expression.
Well, there was a huge divide because disco was really dominating. It was dominating the radio stations and, a lot of radio stations, the programming changes. So there's sometimes a real pushback. We've seen that in radio stations that we like where they're just like, yeah, we're going to play cool, whatever punk or alternative is now it's going to be nothing like that at all. And you get... people get burned, but the people follow the money or whatever it is. And I feel like people blamed disco on a lot of it, and also represented things like fun, excess.
Yeah, glamorousness. In a time that maybe, again, was just getting on its feet.
Emptiness, vapid.
Yeah.
And people.
And hot beats.
Hot beats that not everyone was on board with.
Yeah.
And they found a time they're like, well, let's make the most of it.
The disco police.
Oh, no, the helicopter. I feel like this helicopter is literally
It's our mascot now.
I was going to say.
In the living room?
Usually I was like, there are so many helicopters.
Yeah. Has there been a time that we recorded where there has not been
lately.
a helicopter?
Not lately.
This area is getting more dangerous or safer?
I don't know.
Anyway, Echo Park, everybody. Echo
Yes.
Park Risings this weekend. It's going to be very happening. Yeah. Speaking of happening, disco.
Yeah. And I think people were like, well, okay, it's a real hotbed. Mm-hmm. Let's maximize the potential.
Yeah.
And Disco Demolition Night was one of those things. And it is there's a huge warning. There's a little bit of politics involved, socio-political.
But a lot more fun. But a ton of fun, too.
This is going to be zero fun.
No one dies. No one gets hurt.
No one dies.
Drugs.
Probably plenty of drugs. And the peanut butter battery sandwiches and the Schlitz and cottage cheese are aplenty. It was a promotion that, a radio station was like, we're mad about what's going on with disco kind of plaguing radio stations.
An alliteration.
Yeah. And
run with
the Chicago White Sox were like, we need to drum up some biz.
Oh, and they're like, let's team up.
So basically, they were like, we're going to have a promotion where we are going to destroy disco records.
Whoa.
At this baseball game.
Not even using them as a cup holder or a decorative bowl or a hat.
Not at all.
Or, whoa.
It's just meant to be blown up. So Thursday, July 12th, 1979 in Kaminsky Park in Chicago, Illinois. It was a riot. I love riots. When I hear the word riot, it's just like sign me up.
You perk up.
I perk up, and then I perk right back down.
Yeah, exactly.
I perk right back down.
If you want to capture Jason's attention, just shout riot, somewhere crowded. He'll perk right up.
So there was it was blown up on the field. There was a doubleheader between the White Sox and the Tigers. And, they needed more people in seats. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what do we do? And I feel like radio stations were especially in the 70s and 80s, were in a different way prevalent. Because now it's the internet is kind of what makes radio kind of prevalent in promotion of things. Or they're like, we're already at this concert where a radio station would do some weird kind of crazy stunt or promotion that you really don't get away with these days. The problem we're going to discuss is that in what became we're just going to blow up some disco records.
Yeah.
Really became a kind of under the microscope of what does this really mean? Where people are like, is this an attack on African American culture, the Latin culture, the gay culture?
Yeah.
And that's the debate. There's still kind of a debate. Nobody cared about the litter.
Glitter.
Oh, I think it's glitter. Oh, glitter. I think you said first. I think you said litter, and I was like, "Oh wow, you're just like
culture."
Yeah, it's just equal rights and what's up with all the litter bugs? You're just.
I take a stand on things. I can get political too.
Yeah. You don't want any litter bugs.
No litter bugs. You heard it here first.
So as it started, it was like, listen, we're gonna blow up some records. I mean, people were just things like Saturday Night Fever. Really, I think is really what.
Have you seen Saturday Night Fever recently?
Have I? I think I've seen some of it recently.
Oh my God. I saw it in Hollywood Forever in the park with a friend of mine who was coming into LA. And Hollywood Forever screens these movies. It's really fun. You drink wine, eat cheese. It's great. But we were watching, and Saturday Night Fever is so dark. There's suicide, rape, drugs, depression. And so we were watching this, and this torrent of cockroaches just came and flooded our picnic area. Yeah. That's what I think of when I think of Saturday Night Fever.
Well, I think that is one of the things that really visually represented disco and kind of what the change and what was wrong. And it was just a lot of excess.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were like, where's our rock and roll?
Yeah. Where it at?
It's like MTV,
Ripped t-shirts.
Now MTV was just now we literally just do reality shows. We don't really play music anymore.
Yeah.
And it kind of happens. You don't realize things are happening. And some people were like, I'm not crazy about it. So it's what do we do? So Steve Dahl, who was a a shock jock. Strapping.
Boy, oy, oy, oy.
Yeah.
Awooga.
He was, the radio station was 97.9 WLUP.
Oh, lup it up, y'all.
With the zoot.
Steve, on the other line.
And then there's like a female DJ who's like, you guys.
Yeah,
like,
you guys are crazy.
You guys are
It's
crazy.
like,
I have to deal with you.
Cheryl,
Yeah.
shut it.
You can't rein us in.
Don't even try. We're the boys.
So Dahl was like, listen, you can get into the park for 98 cents if you bring a disco record. Also, the problem with
I
it
wonder
is,
if it's something like on the fringe of disco would qualify, like something that's more, like, I don't know, maybe a little bit. What's on the fringes of disco?
well, I would say, I mean, it's not even, it's probably inspired by, but like, R&B,
Yeah.
soul.
Is that
was brought in there. And that's where it was.
the race stuff?
Yes,
Yeah.
where people are like, the argument is that there's a black person on this album cover.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the argument is that this guy Steve Dahl, he's racist or he's homophobic, and that was the purpose. And I mean, obviously, I really don't know. I want to have a really fair middle of the. I honestly have having this kind of like really strange kind of being like kind of pulled from one side to the other. In the original intent, I'm just gonna, for argument's sake, I'm gonna assume the intent was, I just want to be a jerk that blows up records and make a huge thing.
Yeah. I never know. We're in Chicago. We're in 1979.
Well, I've read a lot of comments on a lot of message boards. I want to see what the conversation was, and people were like, how can this be about racism? Doesn't make any sense. As if no one in Chicago at this particular game during 1979 could possibly be racist in the first place. People were like, what? How are people getting racism out of this? The thing is that the intent, I'm going to assume the intent was, I'm going to say good, because I'm not really into like burning books or blowing up records.
Yeah.
Whether it was Beatles records or anything. Like, I'm just not like a huge.
I think it's such an, burning or destroying a piece of art, even if you hate it, is such a statement on culture. It's really hard for me to parse those things.
Yeah, it's, and I'm trying to be fair with it. I'm trying to be impartial. Kind of hard because number one, I know that human beings have the capability of being racist and homophobic. It doesn't matter this could have been a regular game. They could have had, Boston playing, or, what I mean? Or maybe, I don't know, Steely Dan. They don't really play live that much, but whatever. Steely Dan, there's a possibility one homophobic person's there. I mean, that's just statistic, and it's not hard to believe that people can be shitty. So even if your intentions are good, people could be there, and when I think there's a thing like a riot or there's kind of a mass hysteria a little bit, people's, the kind of the worst parts of them might come out.
Yeah.
I heard I haven't gotten into this that much yet, but I remember, and I honestly was trying to find this piece of information where I believe there was a guy, and he was either Puerto Rican or he was African American, and he was working at the park, taking tickets, selling hot dogs. I don't know what he was doing. He was literally just working there, and people were running around with these records, and they a whole bunch of people kind of stopped and looked at him as if you're the reason that you're the reason why we're doing this.
Whoa.
So it crossed lines. Oof. And that's part of the problem. And 40 years later, because now we're 40 years later, a lot of reflections going on back to it, and there's just. It's a black eye on, I'd say baseball, and because it's a stunt, but I'm not gonna be too sensitive about doing some stunt blowing up disco records.
Yeah.
But it really was more than that. But I'm not gonna say that the intention was, listen, we do not like gays, and we do not we're white supremacists. So let's use this opportunity to do that. Yeah. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But I do believe that lines were blurred. Yeah. Because when you start bringing, an OJ's record or, a John Coltrane record, they're close enough.
That's not
not close enough.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was just that. I think it's an obliviousness of that time, cultural insensitivity that became, and with a riot and with destroying things, became bigger than it was.
Yeah. Because I remember being indoctrinated with like, yeah, disco sucks. Especially because, we into like punk rock and, like 70s rock. And in the 80s, I was like, into new wave or whatever. And disco always sucked, even though there's like, and then there was a resurgence in the late 90s where I was like disco and I was like, like everything. And I was like, but some of it is good.
Yeah. It's fun.
You
can exist on both. You can enjoy both things for different reasons.
I Will Survive is a great, great song. It is, for me, like, not tired. Even looking back now, and so many people cover it because the lyrics are so good, and it's just a good song. There's some songs just fall into that disco category. Like, I remember Kiss, a lot of pushback because Kiss had essentially a disco album at that point. So you saw people kind of getting, kind of feeling the pressure of like, well, we got to do a disco record.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? I got to, like, whereas some like rock bands were like, well, we got to put rap in some of our songs and we got to need a DJ.
Yeah.
How do we not have a DJ, guys? Come on. We're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
It's 1998. We're freaking out.
Yep.
So there was a little bit of that. So I understand that, even though looking back, I do think some of disco does suck, but it's on a case-by-case basis. And I think some of it is good. And also, like, let people just do what they want to listen. I don't want to.
Also, like, every
everything's
genre has something that sucks.
Absolutely.
Something that rules.
And disco has a lot of great stuff. Well, they were hoping for a crowd of 20,000, which is 5,000 more than they usually get. They got 50,000.
Whoa.
Do you see where the expectation was like, God, we hope we get just a little bit more? They got a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think it was the idea of watching things get blown up, like almost like as a monster truck rally was happening. And Steve Dahl, he dressed almost kind of like an army guy, like kind of like a faux.
Oh, man. It's like tone deaf,
It's a little, it's a little bit, it just is not a good look. He still kind of defends his point of view that, he was like, listen, it went out of control. There was a lot of things that, could have been better and we could have planned it a lot better, which is a lot of hindsight. He's like, but I'm not racist. I'm not a homophobe, or it doesn't make me that. I don't know what he really is. And what he's saying is this event did not make him that. I don't know. I don't know what his take is. And there's still a lot of people are just kind of like, it's most people that weren't there.
Yeah.
Some people were there. Some people weren't there. I did a little bit of research. I found some conversations because we're talking about 1979. But a lot of people are just kind of looking back. And a lot of people are like, well, you weren't there. How could you say it's, there was a commentary on anything other than we just want to blow up some disco records? And other people are like, well, how do you know?
Yeah.
You weren't there, especially you weren't there as like a Puerto Rican, a black, Asian, or what, not white.
Yeah.
You weren't out there. I mean, you could come from that area.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you've know people and know stories, and a lot of other metropolitan cities around the world, non-metropolitan. It's not that hard to believe, too.
Yeah.
And I just think the White Sox, like, also are probably like, this is a very kind of popular, when you think with the White Sox, like, this is apparently a very popular thing. I'm not speculating. I don't really know much about the White Sox. That might be your territory.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard. It feels it's just like, to me, it feels very white. And
I mean, the fact that they're called the White Sox, the fact that there's a White Sox.
I don't know. It's like, it's a very segregated city. I think white culture really is enthusiastic about baseball in Chicago. So I feel like it's like a lot of these things become a perfect storm.
Sure, there's a lot of pride. I understand that. Yeah, like you also you like love your team.
But again, I think it's mostly oblivious. I don't think people had in it. From what you're saying, I don't think there was a big, racist agenda behind it.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, you can looking back, you're like, all right,
So what they did was they collected records, and people are, of course, throwing, like, it's the last thing you want to have are LP records being, or 7-inch records or 45s being thrown around. That's like a lot of litter. Yeah, which we know that
don't like litter.
You do not like litter bugs.
I make it 2 syllables.
So they blew up the records, and then right after that, just people started storming the field, and then the riot police were called.
Yeah,
which is not part of it.
No.
Which is not something they probably anticipated, but I think everyone hopes for.
I wonder what they did hope for from this, like a nice peaceful, like fuck you disco moment. Like, what did they think was going to happen?
I'm probably thinking it's I think the White Sox were like, we want people in the seat, we want more people to show up. Understandable, get it. It's a there's a kind of end goal and there's a bottom line there, and radio stations are like. I'm sure there's a lot of competition in radio, and they're like, we want to make a big splash. So maybe the creative control we might be able to hold on to.
Yeah.
Because we've now have a lot of great publicity, I guess.
Yeah.
Depending on how you look at it.
That makes sense. I
yeah.
mean, again, and the sentiment of hating disco felt like a very cool statement at the time.
Yeah.
But again, destroying it's like we're going to build this brick wall in the middle of the stadium, and everyone's going to destroy it.
Yeah, just we're going to put on helmets and we're just going to smash our heads
it'll
against
be fun. It'll be fun, you guys.
But the second game was initially postponed, but then ended up being forfeited by the White Sox the next day by order of the American League.
Ooh.
Yeah. Disco night happened and may have helped the decline of disco. Because in 1979, now the tides are turning a little bit.
That's right.
You know, Blondie is, has a little bit of disco and a little bit of rap in her songs, but I think things are moving towards, kind of the 80s become a little more like obviously rap music is,
That's right.
Fat Five Freddy and Grandmaster Flash and all those.
Yeah.
A lot
Should
of,
we take a little break right now as we transition?
Oh, as soon as I get into rap music, you're like, oh, I know you're gonna be completely unhinged. Let's take a little break.
Okay.
So before we get into more rap music, which I know, and littering, if you look on our Patreon, you will find a limited edition Patreon tier. How fun is that?
Let me tell you something. We've never been more fun than what we are right now.
We're at peak fun.
We are stumbling through the last days of disco, but before we get back to it, we are going to give you a gift. The universe is going to give you a gift.
Yeah.
You just have to find it.
Yeah.
You just have to be open your heart to it.
And by that, type patreon.com/ghosttownpod and then check out the tier where you can get our new enamel pins, our first piece of merchandise for a limited time.
The first.
I crunched the numbers. We will not be making any money from it.
No. Jason he had a big calculator with like one of those rolling papers, and he had that little visor.
Yeah.
He was just going at it. He was like, how do we make money? And I'm like, stop. We don't make money. We give the people what they want.
Yeah.
I was the hero.
Yeah, you were the hero. But we wanted to make the tier $6.66. So with the cost of the pin and the materials, and I think you're going to put some free goodies in some of them.
Might be some goodies in
might
there.
Be some extra goodies. We probably might even lose a couple of cents on each one, but we are excited for people to have it.
We don't care, baby.
Yeah, we're very good at losing money.
Yeah. Oh, I would say we're semi-professional at it.
Yeah.
We'll do it quickly, and we'll do it efficiently.
And we'll never, like every time we do something, hear the sound of a toilet flushing and our money and time just going down it. But check out the Patreon.
Please do.
If you want to help support us. Also, with that tier, you get all the there's got to be 20 bonus episodes.
All the bonies.
Yeah, there's so many good. We got some nice haunted ones in there right now.
Some ones. We're having fun.
We're having fun.
If you're not, you're not. Okay, we are.
Yeah,
we're having a lot of fun, and you know what? We want to bring you along for the ride.
And it helps support us. Some of the editing costs when we're not losing money.
Yeah,
we are submitting to some festivals.
We are. I'm watching a lot of the Hills reruns, not the new one, but the reruns,
which doesn't help us at all.
No, it doesn't. It's just I thought I'd mention my. People were clamoring for more personal life stuff, so there's a little something for you all.
We have some messages, nice messages. And to the people that gave us a favorable review on Apple Podcast, thank you.
Thank you.
For taking the time.
I love you.
We appreciate it. Even if, it's just an honest review, we'll take it. We appreciate your time.
It.
Thank you so much. It really does.
It helps us.
Yeah. It helps when people see it and they're like, oh, this has,
more people have their eyes and ears on this, even if they are disgusted by what they have just experienced. And that's okay.
And we have a lot of great feedback from our Instagram, which is Ghost Town Pod.
Please.
We got some nice stuff. Lucy in the Sky on Instagram.
Hello.
Hands down, one of my favorite and one of the best podcasts out there. I love the banter between you two, and I personally love hearing about y'all's personal life.
Well, there you go. There you go. Are you sure?
You're not bringing it back.
I just got a text from a guy that I went on one date with. We should talk about an hour later.
Much later. In fact, the microphone won't even be here. That's when we'll do that one. Maybe we'll get back into that.
Wow.
We got to earn the people's trust again.
Okay, we'll do it.
And she appreciates what you guys do. I love it. You can make an episode on ghost towns in Texas.
I'm ready.
We're ready. Oh, P.S. Please don't censor Rebecca. Let the woman curse.
Thank you. Finally, someone gets me.
Finally. Yeah.
It's just like I'm struggling. I'm trying to find myself in this crazy podcast world. Lucy in the Sky gets me.
And Drum J8 says, hello, I'm loving the pod. Not sure if you're interested, but if you Google Balete Drive and or White Lady,
I think
It could be
a lady.
it could be a potential episode. My cousins traumatized me with stories in the Philippines when I was a kid. They scare me to this day. And Drum J8 actually gave us a very kind review on Apple Podcasts. So thank you for that. Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you very, very much. We so appreciate it.
Yeah.
We need it. We feed off of it.
We need it.
We're not here without you.
All right, back to racism.
Okay. Shake it off. Shake the kindness, niceness community off.
We got to get back to it. So disco was kind of really about to flame out, but it was still holding on, and this was one of those things that kind of helped culturally do that. Although I think just times changing, excess, like places like Studio 54, and then disease and drugs and crime and all those things, and a lot of kind of pushback on fun.
Yeah,
there was a price to pay. We all kind of found out.
You got to pay the piper. You're going to be tone deaf white people gathered together to forecast the death of disco to make money. Something bad might happen.
Yeah, and a lot of people had pushback on it and were very critical of it anyway. So there was a lot of things going on, but things like the Village People was probably, I'd say, a prime example of all these things happening at once. Radio stations were switching over, and people were either being like, great, somebody might be like, oh great, I love this new format. Most people are like, I listen to this radio station for a reason. And then according to Steve Dahl, the DJ, they were in a war, in quote, dedicated to the eradication of the dreaded musical disease known as disco, leading up to disco. They were really kind of like really milking it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I love how much anger is focused on this genre of just innocuous pop music.
Yeah. Steve Dahl also had his own song.
Oh.
Do you think I'm disco? 'Cause I spend so much time blow drying out my hair? Do you think I'm disco? 'Cause I know the dance steps, learn them all at Fred Astaire, from the Steve Dahl song, Do You Think I'm Disco?
Wow.
Which is a kind of a Do You Think I'm Sexy?
Yeah.
And there was anti-disco things going on in other parts
Yeah.
of the world. This wasn't the only place
Yeah.
that this was happening. It's just really kind of like when you got 50,000 people, it's a real powder cake. So he was in army fatigues, he had a helmet, he was like in a Jeep. So it was like this whole kind of like military vibe going on, which really gets people's like, you got baseball, you got military.
Yeah, like hyper Americanized white masculinity.
And to quote Dahl, he yelled at the crowd, he's like, this is now officially the world's largest anti-disco rally. Now listen, we all took the disco records you brought tonight, we got them in a giant box, and we're going to blow them up real good.
Oh, because don't blow up bad, because that's like half a blown up box.
Or what do they become like more solidified? Like,
they become gold and become more powerful.
They blew it up. There was tore a hole in the outfield grass. There was thousands of people are running out into the field. Things started to get pretty chaotic. The White Sox had to, I think it's the first time that a game in history got forfeited.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a pretty big, like it was a pretty big statistically baseball thing that happened, which I'm not super familiar with, as you can probably tell.
That's a real backfire, though. It's we're gonna kill disco. How about disco kills baseball?
Yeah,
how about disco bites back, baby?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I think the White Sox kind of like there's some articles that are kind of like re-celebrating it, and some people are like, this was not like this wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Hindsight, this was not a good thing.
So I got a couple of quotes. I mean, Steve Dahl went on. He went to write a book, and he.
It was called Disco. I love it. I mean, hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, and he's still kind of, in kind of like a way, like it just the optics was like still not great, even though he's like, no, but the fact that like I'm sticking by the fact that like I'm right, and people are like,
so many people do that. Where it's like, how about you just be a man and be like, you know what? It didn't work out, really.
Detroit won the first game 4-1, by the way. of the two games. The other game, the next game got.
Fuck you, Chicago, and your Chicago sports and your rabbits, Chicago sports culture.
No,
from Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's still like I want to say
Milwaukee's pretty like that too, but it's it's our rival, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Like especially when we're out here doing comedy, everyone from Chicago is like, yeah, Chicago's the best thing, deep dish pizza. But it's like, go home then.
Yeah.
I don't know, like you hate LA so much, you want to go back to your frigid winters.
I like deep dish pizza though.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't want to like.
No one hates deep dish pizza.
Yeah, we love the deep dish pizza. So I got some quotes from some people that were there.
Yeah.
This is from NPR. Vince Lawrence was a then teenager. He was an usher at the event. He was uncomfortable being one of the only black people at the stadium.
I can imagine.
And remember that the fans were just bringing LPs by black artists: Tyrone Davis, Curtis Mayfield, Otis Clay, records that were just not disco.
Yeah,
you look at it, you're like, this is not
plain as day, not disco.
Just black artists, and whatever the intent, this is obviously not just about disco, but about the simmering racial resentment. Nile Rodgers, great producer, he said that it felt to us like a Nazi book burning.
Damn. Now
This is
I'm
America.
revising my idea now, because initially I was like, they just are oblivious white guys, but now I'm like, man, maybe not.
This is a Nazi book burning. This is America, home of jazz and rock. The thing is, like, people like, what happened to the rock and roll? The rock and roll came from from R&B, from soul.
Oh yeah.
Not Bill Haley in the Comets.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah. Come on, everyone, get out of town.
Get out of
town. Take this picnic elsewhere.
It felt to us like a Nazi book burning. This is America, home of jazz and rock, and people are now afraid to even say the word disco. I remember thinking, we're not even a disco group. So I looked at a couple of people's reactions from like a Medium article. Grady Broyle said, bullshit, it wasn't racist. Most of the records that were destroyed that day were not disco. They were soul and R&B. You weren't dissing a single genre. You were dissing all the genres of popular black music that weren't rock.
God, that is very crazy that it was just like mostly black artists at a like black R&B artists at this disco burning rally.
Yeah.
I'm rethinking what I said earlier in this podcast.
Too late.
Oh,
I'm not gonna
You cut it and printed it.
Yep, it's already out there.
Jesus.
Brandon Petrick says we should probably separate. Saying it's Steve Dahl's Medium article. We should probably separate what your intentions were with what many of the participants turned it into. Kind of saying your intentions and the result are two different things. He said, my father was there. He distinctly remembers there being a very anti-gay and racist vibe.
Jesus.
I'm sure that was there. Even if you showed up there for a regular game, because that happens. I'm not saying it's because of Chicago. I'm saying it's just because it's 1979 and it's 2019. You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here? If I went back in time, it's like in 40 years, it gets sort of better, but not really. It's debatable.
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
Remember Donald Trump?
Yeah,
he's our president.
He's like, no, I don't.
They're like, we kind of know him. Didn't he go to Penn? Isn't he some New York bankrupt guy?
Yeah. No, well, not yet.
Not yet. He was. Oh, that was the 80s.
Maybe.
What was he doing then? I don't know.
Eating a hamburger. I don't know what he's doing. Says my father was there. I remember being anti-gay and racist vibe. That vibe may not have come your way. You may have much more direct things to worry about, but it doesn't change how apparently so many people repurposed the event. So that's the divide 40 years later. Some people saying like, oh, remember this crazy thing that like the stunt the White Sox pulled and like how much disco sucks. And really disco still has a stigma. Yeah. I feel like it's almost, it's like a one-hit wonder, vapid, kind of like shiny and glittery.
Yeah, it is. It's very glamorous, like... Yeah, like I think about this picture of my mom who was very into disco. Ooh. Yeah, she has like this like golden sparkly shirt and like really tight pants. She has like the long and like flip like it was like Charlie's Angel style.
Yeah. Well, why don't we finish this up and I'll play some audio from this not racist, not homophobic. I'm winking. You see me winking?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, listen for yourself.
Oh, Jesus.
How about the Bee Gees? Oh, I see. Okay. Well, listen, we took all the disco records that you brought tonight. We got them in a giant box, and we're going to blow them up real good. Hey, it's because of you that this is happening tonight, okay? Not because of us. We're merely a vehicle for your thoughts. Disco sucks! Disco sucks! Disco sucks!